Mr. Speaker, the truth is, unemployment has risen every single month since they came into office. You can listen to their chairs get weaker and thinner with every passing moment. The fact is, despite his huge majority, the Prime Minister doesn't have the votes to reform welfare. There is a solution, a Conservative solution. Benefits bill down. Mr. Speaker, they're all jeering now. I don't know why they're supporting him. He is more than happy to release all their text messages while all of his has disappeared. Disappearing messages from a disappearing PM. There is a Conservative solution. Benefits bill down, taxes down, growth up. Everyone in this House knows that he is just a caretaker, keeping the seat warm for the Mayor of Manchester. But it doesn't matter who's in charge. Labour MPs will keep asking who can they tax to pay more benefits. It is in their DNA. Isn't it the truth, Mr. Speaker, that the problem isn't this passive Prime Minister? The problem is the Labour Party.
Forgive me if I don't take too much notice of the Leader of the Opposition. For 14 years, they broke our welfare system, lost control of our borders, presided over the biggest fall in living standards on record, broke the economy, prisons, the NHS. I could go on and on. No wonder she and they are totally irrelevant.
Nigel Farage. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Following the horrendous circumstances of Henry Nowak's death, can I urge the Prime Minister to consider this? It is now clear to growing millions in this country that we're living under two-tier policing. The instructions that are given to police officers from police bosses are clear and written down in ink. It says you must treat different ethnic groups in different ways. That, apart from the upset and the anger at the circumstances of his death, the anger that you saw spilling out in Southampton last night, and which is in danger,
condemn the violence,
which is in danger of getting considerably worse, because if the public lose trust, if the public lose trust in being treated fairly by the police, can he take some action, end this divisive practice of two-tier policing, and make sure that all British citizens are treated the same?
Mr. Speaker, I don't believe there's two-tier policing in this country. I'm really shocked that he pretends to have respect for Henry's family and then acts in this way. They are a grieving family.
Mr. Blash, please, it's a very important question. I want to hear the Prime Minister. If you want to carry on, go outside, please, Prime Minister.
The grieving family have asked us not to respond in the way that the Leader of Reform has responded. They've asked us not to. They have lost their son in the most appalling circumstance. They make a simple plea of us as human beings to please not exploit that. That is their plea to us. We all need to reflect on those words of Henry's father. My response, and the response of others, to be fair, has been focused on the lessons to be learned, so we can deliver justice. His response has been to appeal for rage. Rage. That's his response to a father who's lost his son, and ask for that not to happen. Exploiting this tragedy to create grievance and division would be wrong in any circumstances, but to do it when the family are expressly saying, please don't, is unforgivable. It shows exactly who he is.
Simple question for the Secretary of State. Has the Treasury signed off the Defence Investment Plan?
The honourable gentleman may not have heard me when I answered before, and I can say to him very clearly the Prime Minister is determined that we publish the Defence Investment Plan before the NATO summit.
PM Scotland. Well, Mr. Speaker, no wonder the Defence Investment Plan is so late. Labour still haven't worked out how to pay for it, Mr. Speaker. But the good news is others have. Lord Robertson, former Labour Defence Secretary, said, "We cannot defend Britain with an ever-expanding welfare budget." And Tony Blair himself warned last week that by the end of this decade we could be spending more on incapacity and disability benefits than on defence. No serious country can do that. Isn't the truth that whoever becomes the next Labour Prime Minister must do one thing above all else to boost defence? Cut welfare and spend the savings on the British Armed Forces.
The truth is that we must return once again to the process by which Peter Mandelson was appointed, and everything in the documents today show that the Prime Minister did not follow the instructions he was given by the then Cabinet Secretary on the 11th of August 2024. He was told to get security vetting done before the appointment was confirmed, and this the Prime Minister did not do. And he was asked to do that because the Prime Minister had been provided with a due diligence document by the Cabinet Office which said that Peter Mandelson had an ongoing friendship with Epstein after Epstein had been sent to prison, the fact that Mandelson had been a director of a Russian defence company which had supplied arms to Putin during Putin's invasion of Crimea, and the fact that he had maintained unhealthy business relations in China. And yet, despite this, the Prime Minister did not get the security vetting done before he made the appointment. He went ahead and made it anyway, and then the rest of the system was scrabbling around afterwards to try and make up for this error. But it was his error. It was clear that due diligence was not followed. It is a failure that is visible from space. It is a failure that will define this Prime Minister's premiership. It is a failure that will be written as his political epitaph.
Yeah. When Henry lay on the floor, he warned that he had been stabbed 4 times. He said that he couldn't breathe 9 times, and yet the officer chose to cuff him rather than treat him. That officer should be in court being prosecuted for a total dereliction of duty. But the bigger question is this: why do officers behave in this way? Is it because they have been taught repeatedly to elevate perceptions of ethnic minority communities over the safety of white British people? That sickness contributed to the killings of Rudakabana, of Kalakone in Nottingham, and now to Digwa, is a sickness rooted in the anti-racism agenda. Will the Home Secretary root it out? Will she return to equality before the law for all? And will she say that when it comes to public safety, white lives matter just as much as anyone else's?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me say to the honourable gentleman, I don't think this is a moment to pit white Britons against non-white Britons. This is a moment to reflect on a horrific tragedy. He knows full well that the IOPC is investigating the conduct of those police officers. It would be wholly inappropriate for a member of this House to seek to preempt an independent investigation into the potential misconduct of police officers. That IOPC investigation will look at individual conduct, but also what other wider lessons can be learnt from this case. I will personally ensure that all lessons are learned and indeed acted upon. And let me also say it is a fundamental principle, not just of the British criminal justice system, but who and what we are as a country, that we are all equal before the law of our land. That applies regardless of the colour of your skin. That applies whether you're a non-white Brit whose family arrived here 50 years ago or 10 years ago, or if you're a white Brit whose family have been here for about 300 years or more. We are all equal before the law of our land, and we should all support that principle, but not use it so as to pit our citizens against one another. That is not what this moment demands.
Father of the House, Sir Edward Lee.
I agree with everything the Home Secretary says, and I agree that we shouldn't weaponise this issue, but nor should we tiptoe around it. The truth is that many white people in this country feel that the police are so terrified of being called racist that either they underreact in the case of the appalling grooming scandal, or they overreact in this case. So there is a role for the Home Secretary now. She needs to really summon in these top police officers and say things have got to change. We are all equal. Don't be terrified of what people think about you. Just carry out the law as you're supposed to do as police officers.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I have made very clear from this dispatch box and over the course of my tenure as Home Secretary to say all are equal before the law, and the police must always act without fear and without favour towards any one group. I don't think it's helpful for us to start pitting either majority or different minority communities against one another. That is not what this moment requires. And it is important. He's right. There's always a balance to be struck. There mustn't be underreaction or indeed overreaction. It is always a balance, and I do believe that the police in the vast majority of cases do get that balance right, and as I say, our police officers every single day run towards danger in order to keep us safe. I will always scrutinise all these actions to make sure that our police service is functioning as it should be, so that every single citizen in our country, regardless of the colour of their skin or the faith that they have or may not have, can be absolutely certain that they will always be treated equally, and that whatever complaint they have will always be investigated in the way that we would all expect.
The government says that less than 1% of the countryside will be covered in solar farms. But if the 7,000-acre Great North Road scheme, which is now before the Secretary of State, the 2,000-acre Steeple scheme that is now before the Secretary of State, and the 4,000-acre One Earth scheme, which is shortly before the Secretary of State, all get approved, almost 10% of the landmass of my constituency, one of the most rural and largest in England, will be covered in solar farms. Good quality agricultural land in Nottinghamshire and Lincolnshire lost. How on earth is this fair to local communities?
Yeah. For reasons he'll understand, I'm not going to comment on individual planning decisions. But what I do, because they have to go through the proper process. But what I do say to him is that solar is the cheapest, cleanest form of power that we have. Now, look, we can decide to bury our heads in the sand. We can decide to stay on the fossil fuel roller coaster, but the people who will pay for it are his constituents, because they're paying for it now in higher energy bills. This side is going to keep going with the drive for clean power.
There is, as far as anyone can see, no good reason why the government cannot tell the House more in terms of high level. As I said earlier, the Chief Secretary of the Prime Minister on Monday gave us something more high level in the 4 categories. But as I mentioned in my remarks, there is further that we can go. I also believe that there is no good reason why the information that has been given to the police cannot be given to the ISC. I also think all of us, even those who are not members of the ISC, should be entitled to know a bit more. And we should be entitled to know about the number of messages that are withheld. We should be given a degree of detail, because there is no reason why that would prejudice an investigation. On the question of Morgan McSweeney's messages, which we know still existed in April this year when he talked to the Foreign Affairs Select Committee about them and said that they would that they were already in the position of the government because of the inquiry that Wormald had done in September last year. Can he confirm that the process discovered those messages and that consequently that Morgan McSweeney was telling the truth to committee? It is time for the government to just take us to the next level of transparency. I very much hope that that is what the Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister wants to do, because ultimately all of this will come out in due course. And if it does, and it turns out that the government was unnecessarily withholding information, the scandal will continue again and again, and it will infect more and more people. It doesn't need to do that. Let's clear this up now.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. In relation to the first part of the Right Honourable Gentleman's question, he knows, because I've confirmed at the dispatch box to the House previously, that questions were put by the Prime Minister's former Chief of Staff to Peter Mandelson following the due diligence report to ask for further information about the stories that had been reported in the newspaper, and that Peter Mandelson replied to those questions. That information was then considered by those in number 10. As I've confirmed to the House, that document, the questions and its answers, are one of the documents that have been held by the Metropolitan Police, and I have been advised repeatedly that I am not permitted to disclose what I have seen in that document on the floor of the House.